Across the world, marine spatial planning, or MSP, is used by governments as a way to understand and plan the use of the marine environment to guide sustainable development. This approach is necessary to address the triple bottom line of sustainable development: growing economies, protecting the environment, and advancing social well-being. MSP is important in guiding decision-making and reducing conflicts such as marine tourism, recreation, biodiversity conservation, fisheries, oil and gas, mining, or transport. It is an essential tool for managing a blue economy. MSP is a practical way to create and establish a more rational organisation of the use of marine space and the interactions between its uses, balance demands for development with the need to protect marine ecosystems, achieve social and economic objectives in an open and planned way, and alleviate pressures on ocean resources, often from competing demands.
We are faced with what I would refer to some level of user conflict, and who has rights over certain aspects of the marine space. We have fishermen, we have tourism, and we have maritime traffic. We have ferry terminal passengers, and then we have dive tourism, and it all takes place in the same marine space. And we need to be careful that some of these activities generate pollution. So we are very careful to try to maintain a good image for Dominica as the nature isle. So it is of very great significance for us to be able to create some order in the marine environment, and also for environmental protection. We want to, as far as possible, maintain a pristine environment.
From a fisheries perspective, having to find ourselves that we have to share an ocean which was traditionally dominated by fishing activities with other sectors such as tourism, recreation, and even research, even now the creation and formation of MPAs or MMAs, some say marine management areas, marine protected areas, but whatever the case may be, now these areas, we now have to accept that spatial planning is going to be done, has to take place, and where do we fit ourselves so that we can have can cohabit, and co-manage with other sectors.
Most OECS nations are already applying some aspects of MSP through area-based management tools, such as designating shipping lanes, allocating fishing areas, and implementing locally managed marine areas, or MPAs. MSP is not a substitute for single sector planning and management. This is still needed even when MSP is in place. However, by taking an overarching perspective, MSP provides direction to reduce conflicts, balance development and conservation interests, and address cumulative effects of multiple human uses of the same space. MSP is not just conservation planning. While a network of MPAs might be considered within MSP, it seeks to balance economic and social development and environmental conservation, and not focus solely on one or the other. MSP is also not just ocean zoning. Spatial zoning is one way to implement the goals of MSP and has been used to manage individual sectors for decades. A spatial plan is an important outcome of MSP, but the rest of the process, including the dialogue between stakeholders to negotiate different interests and the ongoing monitoring to understand social and environmental change, is equally important. The process of MSP is set out in this diagram. 3 initial steps set in place the institutional, financial, legal and policy framework required for MSP to be a success and to be sustainable. During this initial stage, the development objectives for individual sectors and interests such as conservation are considered, along with overarching policy frameworks such as the NOPs, which steer how these different interests and sectors should be balanced. Planning is a dynamic process that learns and adapts over time. There should always be iteration between each step in the MSP process. For example, analyses of existing and future conditions will change as new information is identified and assessed, and objectives identified early in the process should be modified as more is learned about what is possible and what is desirable in the country's marine space. This ongoing process relies on monitoring and evaluation to understand the progress towards policy objectives and changing social and ecological conditions. To support this process, information is needed to understand the economic, environmental and social situation and drivers and how these are changing. It's important to understand what economic activities are happening where, how much GDP they create, and where the main employment opportunities arise. It is also important to understand how the marine and coastal ecosystem functions and how it may be affected by ongoing or future economic activity. And lastly, understanding how society uses the marine and coastal space is also important. This should include all uses, not just employment, but leisure, recreation, culture, health, and well-being. MSP relies on understanding what is happening in a marine space, environmental and social effects, and how these are changing over time. This places a huge demand on the need for data and ways to compile them, so that the full picture can be understood by planners and decision makers. GIS, Geographical Information Systems, are used to present data and help understand the state of a marine area, so the environment, bathymetry, hydrographic and socioeconomic activities, identifying, locating and visualising the spatial distribution of resources and uses, combining several types of spatial data to understand options and inform decision making. For example, spatial data sets showing the extent of a sensitive habitat can be overlaid with fishing intensity to show where conflict may arise. Supporting stakeholder engagement by providing visuals for explaining to stakeholders the issues and understanding their use and engagement with the marine area. Planning for blue growth involves everyone. We all have a stake in how the ocean's wealth and resources are used. MSP needs coastal communities, fishers, tourism organisations, divers, shippers, the private sector and government authorities to come together and agree on a common vision for our shared ocean space and our blue economy. It's important to engage with these stakeholders early in the process and keep the engagement going all the way through. The more one group of stakeholders understands the needs of another, the easier it will be to resolve conflict and find solutions that benefit everyone. MSP provides a framework for marine management, which is discussed in more detail in Module 9. It has to be relevant to the many different decision-making regimes that are delivering frontline management. It does not replace them. The MSP process provides guidance and direction at a macro level to management decisions and articulates relevant national policy outcomes spatially, but does not replace the micro-level decision-making that is needed within each management regime. The coastal waters around St Kitts and Nevis are used for a wide range of activities such as coastal tourism, yachting and cruise ships, which sit alongside commercial and artisanal fishers to form a significant part of the local economy. However, marine habitats and biodiversity are being threatened by rapid coastal development, overfishing and other pressures. When this is combined with transportation needs such as ferries, cruise ships, personal recreation vessels and large industry vessels, the result is a congested marine environment with increasing conflicts within the limited coastal area of St Kitts and Nevis. In 2010, the Maritime Administration of St Kitts and Nevis, in collaboration with the Nature Conservancy, conducted an MSP exercise and drafted a marine zoning plan for St Kitts and Nevis. Extensive stakeholder engagement took place via meetings with appropriate government ministries and departments, as well as workshops to engage community groups, the business sector and fishers associations, among others. As part of the process, stakeholders provided data on a variety of human uses, supplementing existing databases with local knowledge. Additionally, scientists added to existing data by conducting work to map the habitats on the seabed and local fishing activity. This pilot project was used as the basis to declare the St Kitts and Nevis Marine Management Area in 2016, extending for 2 miles around the coastline. It includes multiple use zones addressing transportation, fishing, recreation and conservation.
The Department of Marine Resources and the government of St Kitts and Nevis in 2016 declared the 2-mile radius marine management area, so it is known as the St Kitts and Nevis Marine Management Area, and that used work done in 2010 by the Nature Conservancy and USAID in order to come up with a marine zoning plan. Now, we use marine spatial planning, stakeholder consultations, and a myriad of other things in order to come up with a 2-mile radius that spans both islands, St. Kitts and Nevis, and there are 5 zones: conservation, transport, recreation, fishing priority, and mixed-use zone. And what we are doing currently is working with the crop program in order to expand the marine spatial planning for St. Kitts and Nevis out beyond that 2-mile radius.
Marine spatial planning is a tool that can help to bring people together to resolve issues and provide a framework for operational decision making. Next, in Module 9, we'll discuss marine management, which is guided by MSP. In this module, we've explored how MSP helps understand what activities are happening and how these can be balanced to ensure that environmental health is maintained or improved, and how it guides decision making and reduces conflicts between important interests in the OECS, including marine tourism, recreation, biodiversity conservation, fisheries, oil and gas, and shipping. In Module 9, we'll explore in more detail how human activities are managed through different regulatory frameworks and approaches.